understand what this problem will do to you, look at the city of Detroit. Now, the city of Detroit just went bankrupt. They had $11 billion in debt and $2 billion in cash. Now, that's a problem. Of the $11 billion in debt, $9.5 billion of it was pension and retiree health benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed.
So you heard it from Governor Christie. But does he have a point? Is New Jersey and other states, potentially other states, headed down the same road as Detroit? Any one of you, jump in.
I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. First of all of these so-called calculations in pension funding are subject to manipulation. If you look at one set of calculations about Detroit, for instance, you will see that the pension plans are 98% funded or 90%, depending on which plan you're talking about. As soon as the emergency manager came in, voila, suddenly you had these ballooning liabilities in the plan. It depends. You could have an interest rate assumption, and without going into all the details, that go up or down, and it changes by billions of dollars underfunding.
Yeah. I think the clear thing, though, is that it's obvious that cities and states across the country are watching Detroit, and politicians are saying, like, if they get away with it, can we potentially? The scope of the problem, as Karen raised earlier, is really one big question for us to talk about, because depending on whose numbers you believe, we've got a massive pension underfunding problem in this country, or actually it's not so severe. The Rockefeller Institute says that there's 14 million Americans out there whose pensions are underfunded to the tune of $1 trillion. Now, other people quibble with those numbers, argue, and say, you know what, it's very concentrated. It's just a handful of states where there's been corruption, where there's been fiscal mismanagement, where there's been questionable investment deals. The reality, though, is that we are our brother's keeper. If it's happening in New York or Virginia or Tennessee or California or my state, New Jersey, then it's going to affect all of us one way or another. So we really do have to deal with this. And yeah, we've got to talk credibly and honestly about it without a lot of manipulation of the numbers.
Yeah, and let me just say one more thing, which is, why don't you go and then I'll go. Sorry.
Right, so I was going to say, I mean, just picking up on our brother's keeper theme, I mean, we're not talking just about retiree health plans and retiree benefits. We're also talking about our basic investment in the public services. And so there was a study that just came out about teacher pensions that was advocating for a system that would encourage people who are going to be leaving the field. Well, it's important for us to be investing, as we were talking about before, in a compensation package where maybe the wages aren't competitive with the private sector, but publicly minded people will be able to still take those jobs because they know their retirement security is accounted for, that they can put in the years to develop expertise and skills and be able to really take on the challenges in a classroom, for instance, right? If you defund the pensions, then you're going to be moving people out who would be developing that experience and expertise to teach a classroom of people who don't have, kids who don't have basic literacy and who can read full stories in kindergarten. You don't know that coming straight out.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about Detroit is one of the bailouts that are involved is $230 million that Barclays is putting up and is being paid for by the taxpayers. That's going to pay off swaps by Bank of America. These are financial weapons of mass destruction. So we can't pay retirees who may be living on $1,200 a month, but we can pay these exotic financial instruments so more investment bankers can buy Lamborghinis.
Yeah, they sort of negotiated it down to the lofty little mark of 85 million at this point, which is still, you know, a lot of money for a bankrupt city to be paying. And this deals with the question of who bears the burden? Who should take the loss on this? No matter where you stand on the issue of the numbers and what's going on in Detroit, can anyone credibly argue that pensioners, current retirees, or folks who are working on the job right now, who've been made certain guarantees and promises, who negotiated contracts in good faith, that they are quote-unquote responsible, that they are the ones who have put this problem into effect? Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Who could credibly argue that?
And on that note, we have to go. I didn't think I'd get so into this pension discussion, but I did. Thank you, Lynette Khalfani Cox, Connie Raza, Arun Gupta, and Karen Friedman.